Hey everyone, it's Lala. Thank you so much for coming back to my channel and welcome if you're new here. Today we're going to crochet together step by step this diamond granny square top for summer. If you don't know me, hi, my name is Lala. I'm a crochet designer. I make wearables, amigurumi, and anything crochet related. Please subscribe to my channel so I can upload more tutorials for you guys. Let's start crocheting! Start with the color that you want the diamond to be in and work a magic ring. If you want, you can chain 2 and this will count as the first double crochet, but I don't like this option, so I'll show you how to do a stacked single crochet. You're going to insert your hook inside the ring, yarn over into the loop, yarn over into the 2 loops, and now we have a single crochet. You're going to insert your hook into that left loop right here. The left loop of the single crochet, yarn over into this loop, and when you have 2 loops on your hook, you're going to yarn over into both of them. And this is our first double crochet. I'm going to work 2 more double crochets into the ring, 1 and 2, yarn over into the ring, yarn over into the ring, yarn over into 2 loops, yarn over into the left 2 loops. This is one cluster, and this is what we call a granny stitch, a cluster of 3 double crochets. When we've completed 1 granny stitch, we're going to work 2 chains. So 1 and 2. Then make another granny stitch inside the ring. So 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, and 3 double crochets. And again, chain 2. Do that 2 more times. 3 double crochets followed by 2 chains. And chain 2. This is a good time to close our magic ring, so pull this tail right here. And you're going to slip stitch into that first double crochet we did, which is a fake double crochet, but still you can see the loops on top of it. So insert your hook into that stitch, yarn over, and grab the left loop into the right one. Now we want to start working on the corner, and we'll do that by working our way in slip stitches into the corner. So move to the next double crochet here and work a slip stitch again. Do the same to the next double crochet of the cluster. And now insert your hook into the chain space here. Into the chain space, yarn over, into the chain space again, and when you have 2 loops on your hook, you're going to yarn over into both of them. This will allow us to work the stacked single crochet. So insert your hook into the left loop of the single crochet, yarn over into the loop, yarn over into the 2. If you're worrying about not recognizing this first stacked single crochet, so use a stitch marker. Then you're going to work 2 more double crochets into that same chain space. So yarn over, into the chain space, yarn over, back again. When you have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over into the left 2, and yarn over into the remaining 2 loops. Do that again, double crochet into the chain space, and chain 2. Then you're going to work another granny stitch into that same chain space. So yarn over, into the loop, yarn over, 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, and 3. And this is our first corner. Let's move on to the next corner and work the exact same thing. 2 granny stitches divided by 2 chains. 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, 3 double crochets. We have 1 granny stitch, chain 2. Let's work another granny stitch into that same chain space. 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, 3 double crochets, and there we have our second corner. Let's move on to make the third corner. 1 granny stitch, chain 2, and work another granny stitch into that same chain space. We have our 3 corners, 1 last corner. Let's move over to the next chain space and work a granny stitch. Don't forget to chain 2. It's very important to define our corners and work another granny stitch into the same chain space. Next, you're going to take out the stitch marker if you used one. You're simply going to slip stitch into that first fake double crochet we did in the beginning. Now pay close attention, please, because we're going to change color. So work another slip stitch into the next double crochet. Insert your hook into the next double crochet, but don't finish it. Just insert the hook, place it on the table for a second, grab your second color. I'm using this beautiful baby pink. Wrap it around your finger, place it on the hook, hold tight to your work, and insert the new loop, the new color loop, into the 2 loops. Next, you're going to insert your hook into the next chain space. Make sure that the tail is behind your hook. Yarn over into the chain space, yarn over, and work a single crochet. Let's proceed to make another fake double crochet. So insert your hook into the left loop, yarn over into the loop, yarn over into the 2 loops. And now we can continue working a regular granny stitch. So 2 double crochets, 3 double crochets, and since we are in a corner, we're going to chain 2. Let's work another granny stitch. 1, 2, and 3. Now we want to change colors back to this red to form the diamond. So what we're going to do is pull up a loop a little bit, insert your hook into those 2 loops right here, and pull firmly the color B yarn. So you have only these 2 loops on your hook. Grab the color A yarn and yarn over into the 2 loops. Now we're going to work a granny stitch between those 2 granny stitches here. We don't have chain 2 here, but we will work a granny stitch between them. So 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, and another one. Now we're gonna change color again to make the corner. So again, pull up a loop, insert your hook into the 2 loops here, pull the yarn, and exchange between the colors. Yarn over into the 2 loops. Yarn over, work a granny stitch into the corner, chain 2 because we're in a corner again, and we're going to repeat what we just did. We're going to work a granny stitch, change color. What you can also do instead of pulling up a loop and inserting your hook is just not finishing the last double crochet of the granny stitch. You're going to yarn over into the 2 loops, and then when you have 2 loops on your hook, you're simply going to drop the active yarn and replace it with the other color. Yarn over into the 2 loops. Depends on my mood, but I usually use this one, but I also use the previous one. Now again, we're going to work a granny stitch between those granny stitches. Yarn over into the space here, 2 double crochets, and change color in the 3rd one. Drop the yarn, take back the 2nd color, yarn over. We're going to repeat that 2 more times until we get to the beginning of the round. Chain 2, another granny stitch inside the chain space, change color in that last double crochet, and work a red granny stitch between those granny stitches. 1, 2, and change color in the 3rd double crochet. Let's work our last corner. Granny stitch, chain 2. Let's work another granny stitch into that same chain space. 1, 2, and change color on that last double crochet. Drop the pink yarn, and close it with the red yarn. Next, last granny stitch between those granny stitches here. Insert your hook into this chain space, work 3 double crochets, and change color in that last one. Next, slip stitch into the first stacked single crochet we did in the beginning. And again, we want to get to the corner, so we're going to slip stitch into the next 2 double crochets of the granny stitch. And this was round 3. Now is the time to cut off the first color yarn because we're not gonna need it anymore. Next, you're going to insert your hook into the chain space, yarn over into the loop, and work a single crochet in order to work a stacked single crochet, which will count as our first double crochet. 2 more double crochets into the chain space, chain 2, another granny stitch into that same chain space, from now on we're not changing colors, we're simply working a granny stitch into each of those spaces between the granny stitches of the previous round. So our first granny stitch will be between those 2, yarn over into the space here, and 3 double crochets. You're going to skip the 3 stitches right here and work another granny stitch between those granny stitches into this space here. Yarn over into the space and work 2 more granny stitches. Now we got to our second corner, so again we're going to work the same here, a granny stitch, chain 2, and another granny stitch into that same chain space. So 1 granny stitch, chain 2, and work another granny stitch into the same chain space. 2 and 3. When we're done with the corner, we're going to work 2 granny stitches into these 2 spaces here. So 1 granny stitch, 1, 2, 3 double crochets, skip these 3 stitches and work the granny stitch into this space here. Another corner, again 1 granny stitch, 2 chains, and then another granny stitch, 2 and 3, chain 2, and another granny stitch into that same chain space. We're going to repeat what we did on this side. 1 granny stitch in each of the next spaces. 1, 2, and 3 double crochets. Go into that next chain space and work another granny stitch. What is it, baby? What? Another corner, our last corner. Let's work 1 granny stitch, chain 2, and another granny stitch into that chain space. 1, 2, and 3 double crochets. 1 granny stitch is done, chain 2, and 3 more double crochets into that chain space. I hope it's clear by now, but I'm pointing it out anyway. Next, work a granny stitch in each of the next spaces between the granny stitches. 1, 2, and 3. Skip the next 3 stitches and work a granny stitch into the next chain space. 2 and 3. To join the round, we're going to locate that first stacked single crochet we did to fake the double crochet. We're going to insert our hook into it, work a slip stitch, and then work 2 more slip stitches into the next 2 double crochets, this one and this one, to make our way into the corner. And then we can work a single crochet, go into that single crochet and make another single crochet, and this is our first double crochet. 2 more double crochets. Then we're going to chain 2, and again work another granny stitch into that same chain space. Let's ignore this fairy monster here and continue working granny stitches into the next 3 spaces we have here. This, and this one. So the first granny stitch, insert your hook into the next space and work another granny stitch. Move to the next space and work another granny stitch. Move over to the chain space of the corner, work a granny stitch, chain 2, and work another granny stitch into the same space. Let's repeat that one more time. Go into the next space here between the granny stitches and work a granny stitch. Three double crochets. Move over to the next space and work another granny stitch. And the last one, move over to the space between the next granny stitches and work another granny stitch. Let's work our third corner. Again, granny stitch, chain 2, and work another granny stitch into the same space. Insert your hook into the next space here between the two granny stitches and work a granny stitch. Move to the next space and work another granny stitch. And one more granny stitch between those granny stitches before we move over to our last corner. Let's work our last corner, granny stitch, chain 2 and another granny stitch. And our last side of the granny square, let's work 3 more granny stitches between the spaces. So first granny stitch, second granny stitch into that space here, and the last granny stitch for this square. This is our granny square. Now we're going to close it. So insert your hook into the first double crochet of the round, or stacked single crochet, and work a slip stitch. Chain 1 to secure. Grab your scissors. Pull your hook away. Tighten it up. And I don't know what you're going to do with your square, but you can either cut off the tails from the magic ring, etc. I'm going to cut off all of those tails and weave in only this tail right here. Just insert the needle anywhere in the same color, of course, to a few different directions. This will make it the most secure. And when you had enough, just cut off the edge. So next step is optional, but if you want to make your top's front a little bit more interesting and you want to make some sort of a cleavage, you have to make 2 granny squares like this one. I'll show you how to do that. We're basically making a square with 3 corners instead of 4. Once you finish round 4, you're not going to start and make another corner as we did in all the other granny squares. We're going to slip stitch into the chain space, and then chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we're going to work a granny stitch into the next chain space, just like we do in all the other granny squares, only without the first corner. We're going to continue working round 5 as we would usually do in a regular granny square, and then I'll meet you back again at the last chain space of the round. This is how it will look when we've almost completed round 5. And then what you're going to do is chain 4, like we did in the beginning. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then slip stitch into the first chain space of the round, the one we started from. And then you're going to chain 1, grab your scissors and cut off the yarn. Pull away the hook to fasten off. And this is how it will look. And of course, repeat to have 2 of these granny squares so you can have your nice V shape in the cleavage. Now that we know how to make our granny squares, we can go and make as many granny squares as we need for our size. So the sizes and the granny squares needed are now on the screen. And I'm going to make the size large to extra large. So I'm going to make 12 squares of the regular squares and 2 of the cleavage ones. I'll see you back again when we have our squares for the layout. So what you're going to do is very simple. You're just going to attach the 2 cleavage granny squares to each other, and then work in around all of the other granny squares in 2 rows. So I'm a size large, extra large. I have 7 granny squares here and 7 here. If you have bigger or smaller size, you'll have less granny squares, but it will look the same. I recommend sewing the rows first and then sew the rows to each other. When you're sewing the cleavage granny squares, you're going to sew each of the 3 double crochets in the granny stitch to the opposite of it in the second granny square. So these 3 to these 3, these to these, etc. until you get all the way down to the corner. And you're also going to sew these 2 chains to each other. Overall, you're gonna attach 14 stitches. In all of the other granny squares, you're going to attach 19 stitches. 2 in the corner, to this corner, 5 granny stitches, which are 15 stitches, and 2 more in the corner here. To sew the granny squares together, you can use any method you like. You can also use a darning needle and simply sew each stitch to the corresponding stitch. I like to use a hook for this. I put the squares facing each other and then slip stitch the squares together, each stitch to its corresponding stitch on the other granny square. When you get to the end of the side you're sewing right now, you're simply going to chain 1 and cut off the yarn. Next, we're going to start working the straps. So what you're going to do is take a stitch marker and count 5 stitches from this connecting point here between the cleavage or the opening of the chest and the other granny square next to it. So this counts as 1, then 2, 3, 4, 5. And there you'll put your stitch marker. Then we're going to attach our new yarn. Work a slip knot or any other kind of method that you like to connect new yarn into this stitch here. Yarn over into the loop. Then you'll have 2 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over into both of them. And this will be our first single crochet of the row. Go to the next stitch and work another one, 2, 3, 4, and take out the stitch marker, 5. Oop. Then we're going to turn our work and work a single crochet into that first single crochet we did. And put 1 single crochet in each of the next stitches of row 1. Don't forget to go into that first stitch. Make sure you still have 5 stitches in a row. Then turn your work again. And repeat row 2. We're going to repeat row 2 until we reach row 60. As you go, try the top with the strap on your body and attach it with stitch markers to make sure it's good for you. If you need longer straps, please add more rows, and if you need shorter straps, just make fewer rows. When you're done working your strap, mine turned out to be 12.5 inches and 32 centimeters long. What you're gonna do is put your top like this, right in the middle, and fold it in half, but instead of attaching it to the exact back of the strap, you're going to put it a little bit more to the left or the right. It depends on the strap that you're working on. You're going to place it like this and then mark the place where it turned out to be on the top with the stitch marker. Count 5 stitches away. Place another stitch marker. And now we're going to attach the strap just between those stitch markers. We're going to continue from where we left off. I'm right-handed, so I'm going to start from here, this stitch marker. Take out the stitch marker. Insert the hook into the last loop you made in the strap. Take the working yarn into your hand. Then insert your hook into that stitch that we put the stitch marker on and into the first stitch of the strap as well. Yarn over and work a slip stitch. And do the same for each of the next 4 stitches. Take out the next stitch marker and into the last stitches. When you're done, chain 1 and cut off the yarn with your scissors. Pull away the hook and then tighten the stitch up. And now our strap is attached. Then you're going to do the same thing, the same process on the other side to have 2 straps. Next, we're going to grab yarn color A and work a slip knot. Place it on the hook and then pick any stitch on the back. I like to start from here so it won't be under the armpits area. Insert your hook. Grab the working yarn, yarn over, into the loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and this is your first single crochet. Mark it with a stitch marker if you want, so we won't lose count at the end of the round. And what we're going to do next is work single crochets all around this round. When you get to this point of connecting the granny squares, you're going to put one single crochet into the chain space, skip this over here, and go straight into the next chain space of the other granny square. When you get to the point where the granny squares connect with the strap, we're going to work a decrease. So insert your hook into the last stitch of the granny square, then into the first row of the strap, yarn over, and pull through all 3 loops. Then we're going to place one single crochet on the side of each row. So this was our first row here. We're going to work one single crochet on the side of each row. Make sure to count your stitches so you have the same number of stitches on each strap. When you're done working your single crochets around and you got back to the first single crochet, let's take out the stitch marker. Then insert your hook and work a slip stitch. And then chain 1. And grab your scissors, cut off the yarn, pull away the hook, and tighten it up. Now that we have one area of the armpit done, we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side, and I'll see you back again when we have 2 straps with the red lining here. When we have our 2 straps and lining done, we're going to work a red lining here on the neckline and on the inner side of the straps. So grab again color A yarn and work a slip knot. Place it on the hook, and I like to start from the back. So let's turn our work. Pick any stitch right here on the granny square. Insert your hook, yarn over into the loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Mark the first single crochet with the stitch marker just to be sure, and do the exact same thing we did on the outer side of the strap. We're going to single crochet into each stitch of the granny square and then work our way around the straps and go down to the neckline. Once we worked our way to the cleavage area, right before we're going down here, what we're going to do is just work one single crochet as we did before until we reach the chain space here that created the cleavage area. So let's work our way to the chain space. When you get to the chain space, what you're going to do is work one single crochet, then chain 1, and then work 2 more single crochets into the same chain space. And this creates the corner of the cleavage that starts the curve down. Then we're going to move to the next chain space and work 2 single crochets into that chain space. And then move over to the next chain space and single crochet 4. Then we're going to work 1 single crochet between the granny squares. Just insert your hook anywhere there. Yarn over into the loop. When we made it to the other side, we're going to do the exact same thing we did in the first cleavage square, only backwards. We're going to start by working 4 single crochets into the first chain space. Then move over to the next chain space and single crochet 2. And then move over to the next chain space and single crochet 2. Chain 1 and single crochet 1, all into the same chain space. Let's complete the hem on the strap and I'll see you back again to finish the round on the back. I finished the strap and now I'm on the back. Moving over the stitch marker to finish the round. That's it. Now that you got to the start of the round, you can just take out the stitch marker and insert your hook into the first stitch you did for the round. Yarn over into the loop and work a slip stitch. Once you work the slip stitch, we're going to join the round by chain 1. Grab your scissors and cut off the yarn. Leave a small tail so we can weave it in. Pull away the hook. We've finished with the top part. The next thing, and we're almost done, is to work the hem on the bottom part of the top. So again, let's flip the top so we can work on the back side. I don't know why I put this stitch marker here. Turn it over. Pick any stitch from the granny squares on the bottom. Grab the color A yarn, the one we used for the hem, and make a slip knot to attach the yarn, or attach it in any other way you like. Insert the hook into any stitch. Put the slip knot around the hook. And into the loop. Chain 1 to attach, and then work 1 single crochet on top of each double crochet on the bottom of the top. Of course, that you can use a stitch marker to mark the first stitch so you know where the start is. I'm going to complete my round off camera and I'll see you back again at the end of the round. And here we are, working our way to the end of the round. Once we're finished, we can take out the stitch marker, then insert our hook into the first stitch of the round, work a slip stitch, chain 1, and again grab our scissors to cut off the yarn. Fasten off by pulling away the hook. Next step is again optional. You can leave the cleavage like this if you like it. I'm going to add a chain here to make a little corset. We're going to take the color A yarn we used for the hem and make a slip knot. Insert your hook into the loop, tighten it up. Next, we're going to chain 60. So wrap the yarn around the hook, grab the yarn into the loop and work a chain. Let's do that until we have a foundation chain with 60 chains. Once you got your foundation chain with 60 chains, cut off the yarn, fasten off. I recommend using a slightly bigger hook than we used, so we can slide in the chain. So what you're going to do is find the corner we did in the cleavage here. Remember, we did 2 single crochets, chain 1, and then another single crochet. You're going to insert your hook from the back through the chain space. Then put the chain on the hook and slide it inside. Do the same with the other side. Insert the hook between the single crochets and slide it backwards. Make sure that the sides are even. And then finally, for the final touch, we're going to tie a knot, switch the sides to make a straight bow, and tie a little bow. And one last thing left for us to do is simply weave in the tails. So grab a darning needle and start weaving in any tails left from our project. Each tail, of course, to its own color. And that's it, you guys. I hope you like your new top and I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel so I can continue uploading more tutorials for you guys. I'll see you next video. Bye!